Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we would talk about the leaks, just my general opinions and what is obviously coming. Now, when it comes to leaks, this isn't like a full list. There are vehicles that are missing, there are vehicles that will also be coming in the update. Just remember that, so if there is something missing, for example, there's nothing for Sweden in the leak list, that doesn't mean there won't be anything when it comes to the updates. This just means it's not in the actual leak list itself. The other part of this is the fact that a lot of these vehicles coming, it's hard to know all of the factors about, how they're coming when it comes to like rounds or when it comes to armor or all of these different things. There was actually some clarifications about the Chieftain 900 and what armor they were actually going to give it in terms of keeping it around the same BR as the Chieftain at Mark 10. Because obviously stuff like the Chieftain 900 was designed to have access to better armor. It never actually did in terms of like how it was presented, but the idea was if somebody actually bought it, it would get the armor. But as I said, it never did. But because Guardian wants to keep it around the same BR as the Chieftain Mark 10, they're not going to give it that armor, and that's obviously going to annoy some people. So when it comes to the preliminary list for update 251, here are some opinions and how I kind of feel about the update so far. And as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and also like the video. Let's also chat about the fact that there's a ton of other stuff going on in War Thunder right now. So this update, the kind of anniversary update, nowadays I don't just see as the update, because you have the battle pass that is turning up at the same time, and then also you have the event that is turning up, the Dreams Come True one. You have all of the October and November sales, and you have all of that other stuff. And just talking about that, by the way, my new decal will be out this week. We're going to do a soft launch either today or tomorrow, and then it will be available basically over the next period of time. So if you want to pick it up, or if you want the decal, which is on the channel right now, you're going to have to get it today, otherwise it will be gone by tomorrow. So I thought I'd just put that in. So when we look at this preliminary list, it has the Dreams Come True event, the XF5U. It also has a bunch of the Battle Pass stuff, right? Like the Reggiani, and also at the same time the Luigi Cadorna. So if we take those vehicles out, and especially if we have a look at Aviation, my God, does it look pretty rough. You have a few vehicles that aren't premiums. You have the Hawk 200, you have the F-15C, and then you have the D-23. Everything else is a premium. So you have the Su-30, you also have the Yak-1, the JH-7, the MB-326K. By the way, I'm sick of them making these strike aircraft premiums. Like, I thought they would learn from the L-39 that these vehicles don't work very well as premiums, but c'est la vie. I suppose when you add in the Su-25 and the A-10, it gives you kind of a think about, oh, these are really good premiums because of the fact that we give them broken missiles and they just annihilate everything. And it's like, well, yeah, if you give them broken missiles, everybody will play them, just like the the A-5 back in the day. But yeah, eventually they kind of come a cropper when you actually have to balance them a bit against what's actually there. But the main thing is you're getting a JH-7, which will be more of a strike aircraft. You're getting the MB-326K, which is once again a strike aircraft, but it's going to have weird BRs because of its armaments. Going to be around about the Strike Master probably. Then you have the F-15C with the Golden Eagle, which is an F-15 with the AESA radar and probably access to more stuff. So it'll be interesting to see the differences between the C and the E, because technically the C should be an upgraded version, which is designed to kind of modernize the F-15, but also at the same time, the F-15E is already incredibly strong. So what can you give the F-15C that will make it different to the F-15E and want people to actually play it? Because you also have a bunch of other vehicles at those high BRs for America that already exist that, people are playing. And that's kind of the problem with like these general top BR areas right now when it comes to aviation. You have just a bunch of similar vehicles now for America, and maybe it's getting boring for people, maybe it's not, who knows. For me, the problem I have is I like spading vehicles, and I keep spading vehicles at like rank 7, and a lot of them are just awful. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, a lot of the strike aircraft and also a lot of the non-meta vehicles, basically just the non-premiums, are just not good. They don't work very well. And until you get them spaded, and it's like, oh, okay, I get why this vehicle's at this BR, but when you're not there, it just sucks fighting all the premium vehicles. And in this update, they just seem to be adding way more premium vehicles. So just kind of sucks because of that. The H-56 also being a G premium, does it need to be? Does it really need to be? Do we need another unique helicopter, which, by the way, War Thunder is struggling with at the moment because there aren't that many left which are actually interesting and fun to play when it comes to, you know, the actual real life part. There's a lot of random helicopters with like 3 rockets on them or a torpedo or like a depth charge, but they're never going to be interesting when it comes to War Thunder. The AH-56 is one of the last helicopters that they can add to the game which would actually be a little bit more unique compared to what exists, and they make it a G premium. Just sucks. Like, it just absolutely sucks that that's the case. For ground vehicles, the list is actually quite nice. You know, the Chieftain 900, the T-3485 with the stabilizer we've already talked about, the Hawk Tuer also looks very nice. The Jaguar is a welcome surprise for the French, and then also the M113 HVMFs, something that's a little bit different and a little bit wonky, and I like that type of thing. I think generally, when it comes to like spading stuff, that's nice. Israel also, as a tech tree, has really struggled for an identity because a lot of their stuff has just been copy-paste, and the fact that they're adding a unique vehicle with that M113, I think that's generally pretty cool. And the BTR-82 as well, like we've had a massive expansion of light vehicles at the high BRs, and it's just kind of surprised that we haven't had another BTR. Well, now we're getting one. That's awesome. That's pretty great, if we're honest. The weird part is, of course, good old China. You got the CM34, which is something we talked about last update, and we'll once again talk about this update. And then you got the M1A2T. Now, this is going to be an interesting one, and the reason why it's going to be interesting is because of community reaction. The M1A2T, as a vehicle, is in exactly the same position as something like a VT4 would be. So China, mainland China, has always been seen, at least more recently, as at heads with America. That hasn't always been the case. You obviously have the communist versus capitalist thing, but there have been areas where they have actually worked together. There's even a really interesting vehicle, the Jaguar. Is it the Jaguar, actually? It might be a different name, but they worked together on a vehicle, and it was kind of really cool in like the late 20th century when China was opening up. But the thing is, we have recently had a massive controversy with the Chinese, the Japanese, and also the Thai stuff, where what happened is a Chinese vehicle, the VT4, was going to be put in the Japanese tech tree, supposedly, and I will keep using that word, because it was never actually confirmed that it was going to go into the tech tree. It was actually confirmed the opposite, that it was going into that tech tree in the last update. And what has ended up happening is basically they haven't confirmed or denied it's going to happen in the future, but they've basically said, we are listening to you and we are making sure, you know, to take your opinions into account. Which, if you want to look at it kind of apolitically, means please don't hurt us. We will do what you say. We will bend the knee. And the interesting thing is literally the M1A2T is exactly the same thing, but from the other side. This is a vehicle that is being exported to Taiwan. It is from America, but it's going to be in the Chinese tech tree. If you didn't know, there is a lot of animosity between Americans and Chinese people in terms of these types of things. And there has been for many years. They've been seen as direct competitors when it comes to the world stage, and generally a lot of the media around it is China versus America. Even more recently, when it comes to a lot of the news, you have the trade wars, which is generally how people go to war nowadays. And also the differences in economy and how the general setup works. So the fact that the M1A2, the primo American vehicle, one of the most modern variants of the M1, because remember, these were only announced to be exported to Taiwan in the last few years. This vehicle is going to be in the Chinese tech tree. Now, if the world was just, and if all the communities were the same, what would happen is there would be a massive outcry about the M1A2T, and it wouldn't get added to the Chinese tech tree. But the thing is, these things aren't equal, and different communities aren't the same, and don't have the same kind of responsibilities, the same setups, or anything. So this M1A2 will probably end up in the Chinese tech tree, because the Americans who play the game aren't as nationalistic as the Chinese are, and do not organize in the same way because of at least some independent thoughts instead of the collectivism that ends up in other areas of the world. And also, there isn't community members gaslighting them to be able to push these things either. Maybe there will be in the future, maybe that will happen, but at least I haven't seen it right now. There was a lot of gaslighting when it came to the last update and the Chinese stuff to try and set people on fire, and it worked. And this time there just isn't, because guess what? The people who are involved in the leaking of stuff and the people involved in that community don't care about America. They care about China because many of them are from that area or region. So therefore they have an actual invested relationship and invested interest in these things. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see, since basically these two issues are exactly the same, but they will be treated completely differently. And that is something that will be very interesting to see kind of going forward. Naval side of things. There's a lot of cool stuff, and we're going to make a video talking about the naval vehicles. I haven't yet because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't cock anything up. But what's interesting about it is they're doing a massive expansion of the top tier of naval again. Shouldn't be a surprise. The mid-tier update was a big expansion, and they added a lot of the big bruisers, the battleships from the Second World War. And now what they're doing is filling some of the gaps with cool vehicles and also with some premiums, which once again should really not be a surprise, because this is kind of what happens in terms of the naval side of things. The other parts of it, you know, the fact that we have different reloads for the Russian and Chinese vehicles is kind of cool. The fact that they're actually moving them around and using them as a balance thing. The decompression for ground BR is always lovely to see, going up to 12.7. Does kind of worry me a little bit, because remember, when it comes to the ground BRs, they do actually interact with the air BRs too, so I wonder if the air BRs will also go up, or if they'll just stay the same. That means that you'll have some vehicles which are incredibly overpowered if that actually happens, and also at the same time, it means that if it moves up to 12.7, that 11.3 area becomes incredibly spicy and incredibly fun, and there is some crazy vehicles at those BRs right now. The other thing is the KH-59, and as I said, I'll talk about it later on, but goddamn, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the expansion of weaponry. After the last update, it was really interesting to see a lot of people complain about the Mi-24 and its fire and forget missiles, but once again completely forget that the AH-64 has double the amount and also fire and forget missiles, and also all of the other helicopters that have fire and forget missiles. And it made me realize that we do have a real problem at the highest echelon of the game, where most people are only really playing one or two nations, which, once again, I can't blame them for, because as I've said many times, it's been an issue with War Thunder for a millennia. And the reason why it's an issue is pretty simple. There's too much grind, it takes too long, and people just do not have the time. And I can't ever blame people for that. And hopefully it changes. But at least for now, it's just becoming more and more obvious to me that it is a problem. And what's basically going to happen at the highest echelon is you're just going to have less and less skill and more just trying to basically streamline into specific playstyles and just hammer people with those weapons. And it just sucks. Overall, this update to me looks fine. There's just a lot of stuff here, like all of the premiums. If all of these come out and they're all premiums for the naval and the air stuff, I'm going to be super sad, because there's just so many. It's just, and especially after they've just released like the anime thing with 3 additional kind of premiums on top of that. They've also got the sales that are going to be coming during this period, and they also had a bunch of premiums in the last update and the previous one. Like, it's just nuts how many there are. Like, and it's kind of crazy. But maybe they're setting up for all the new tech trees they're going to have to add, which most of them are just going to be copy-paste. As always, let me know your thoughts on these set of leaks. Look after yourselves, peace be with you, and I'll see you soon. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.